He led Arkansas to the Elite Eight last season. They're 21-6 this season. They're 10-4 in conference play. They are 3-0 against the top 25 this season. Arkansas is up to number 18 in the AP poll. Very good friend of the program. In fact, Jungle, fun fact, I have been interviewing this guy longer than any other guest in the history, not only of this program, but of my life. That's how far back we go. Eric Musselman joins us. Eric, what's going on? How are you?
I'm doing great, Jim. Thanks so much for having me on again.
EP Muss, always good to have you on. So you've won 11-12. You've beaten 2 straight ranked teams in your house. How are you doing right now, and how are you feeling about the team as you come down the home stretch?
Well, we're obviously playing really good basketball, Jim. That the one loss was at Alabama, a 1-point loss, which could have gone either way. Alabama's a really good, talented offensive team. They're well coached. It's a hard place to play, and that's been our one little hiccup so far over this winning streak we've had. But we end the season with a really, really difficult schedule. We play at Florida tomorrow. Then we have Kentucky at home on Saturday, LSU the following Tuesday at home, and then finish the season at Tennessee. So arguably, probably the toughest stretch end of the season as anybody in the country schedule-wise. And we've done a good job by beating Auburn at home and had a big win at home against Tennessee. And we played pretty well of late on the road as well. So just trying to continue to do what we did last year, which is get better as the season progressed, not take any steps backwards. Even if you lose a game like we did at Alabama, Jim, I thought the thing was our team got better, and we were able to come back after that loss and handle business. Sometimes you lose, you can point some things out, you can find some holes that maybe you didn't know were there, but you don't want your team's confidence to ever waver.
Eric Musselman is joining us. Not only that, I agree with everything you just said, and on top of that, you're playing really, really tough. You're playing fierce defense, and this is a hallmark of all your teams is how hard they play, how hard they work. And your last 12 opponents, 10 of the 12 have been held to under 40% shooting from the field, so I know that's got to make you happy. Let me ask you about this. You had a bunch of pro hogs back on Saturday. You even broke out some custom kicks yourself. How pleased were you with the shoes, and what's it mean to have the pros back in the arena?
Well, it meant a ton. Several of the guys I had not coached, obviously. Bobby Portis I didn't coach. Daniel Gafford I didn't coach. But then Isaiah Joe, who's with the 76ers. Mason Jones, who's playing for the Lakers G League team. And then even 2 of the guys that played for us at Nevada, Cody and Caleb Martin. Caleb's with the Miami Heat, and Cody's with Charlotte. They all came. And we all know, Jim, or you and I know very well that an NBA player over his All-Star break, maybe go to Cancun or head to some beach, warm area to chill for 3 or 4 days. And the All-Star break this year is actually an extended All-Star break. Guys don't have to report back until Wednesday or Thursday. And so to have those guys back, we had 20,000 fans in the building against Tennessee. Absolutely incredible environment. But what it does is we have a great recruiting class that's ranked second in the nation. For all those guys that have not stepped foot on campus yet and had a practice or gone to class, they get to see how important it is once you're done and the pride that Razorback players have to come back. So really, really cool environment. There's, I know that there's other programs that had 1 or 2 pros back, but not the number of guys that we had back. And like I mentioned, a couple guys from Nevada, guys that we hadn't coached as a new staff. So it was really, really a great environment. They actually introduced our starting 5. Each one of those guys took a different player. And that was something that we kind of brainstormed and thought it would be a great way to get our fans involved in the game before the jump ball even happened.
That is cool. Speaking of your fans, Eric Musselman joining us. Mush, you had shoulder surgery back in January. And, of course, when you beat number 1 Auburn earlier this month, you went legend with your shirtless celebration with the fans. I mean, you've been a part of some amazing basketball moments in your career. Where would you rank that one? And I understand the moment, and I understand the promise, and I understand the adrenaline, but that's a pretty bad wing you have. What was it like to be in the middle of all that humanity?
Well, one of the funniest stories is Moses Moody came in pregame to the coach's locker room prior to our game Saturday against Tennessee, and he said, "Hey, Coach, I got to ask you one thing. Steph Curry wanted to know, did you cut the polo off or did you actually take the sling off, take the polo? And I said, what are you talking about, Steph Curry? And he goes, oh, no, Coach Kerr put the video of you running around with no shirt and a sling and said, hey, this is Moses Moody's alma mater. And so to hear that, he and I got a chuckle out of it.
That's great.
But what had happened was during the day, I went and passed out some food because we had an incredible student line, and some of the students asked, hey, will you take your shirt off if we win tonight? I said, hey, if we win tonight, the shirt's coming off. But I had two police officers. I did the interview with the national television broadcast, and then I'm sitting there, I'm like, hey, I gotta hold my promise with the student section. Let's go back out there. And I asked the police officers, I said, hey, with the torn rotator cuff, I cannot get bumped. And they were like, hey, we got you. And so I had two great officers. I wanted to go celebrate with everybody else. I'm sitting in a locker room alone, and two policemen. I'm like, hey, let's go for this thing. Let's get back in the student section and have some fun. But the adrenaline, being a part of that on a college campus just makes it so much different than coaching in the NBA.
Eric Musselman joining us. I'm going to try and get there too. Hey, Mus, I understand that you're focused on your own work, your own team, but one of the biggest stories of the weekend, of course, was Michigan coach Juwan Howard getting into it with a Wisconsin assistant yesterday. In your experience, Mus, are there unwritten rules when it comes to pressing in the final minute of a blowout or calling a timeout to deal with that press? Like, who was wrong in this situation?
I think, Jim, like the one thing that my dad told me, and obviously he coached the Cavs and the Timberwolves as a head coach, he told me don't worry about anything but what your team's doing. And I think that especially holds true in a late game if there's a double-digit lead. And, so for me, whether a team's pressing, whether a team's not pressing, I always tell our guys, hey, look, we're going to play for 40 minutes as long as there's a scoreboard up there. We're going to play hard. We understand clock management, and if we're on offense, we're going to run the clock out. If we're on defense and we have no chance late game, we're going to stay in a defensive stance, but we're not going to reach for the ball. We're going to give the perception that we're still competing, but we're also not going to extend the game, so to speak, if we have no chance to win. And then obviously, the world that I grew up, Jim, meaning the NBA, the G League, you're not part of a handshake line. The NBA for many years, it's been head coach looks down, acknowledges the other head coach, the other coaching staff, and then oftentimes coaches will shake hands with some players, or they'll go down there and shake hands if they want. But at the collegiate level, this handshake line has always been a part of college athletics. So there's a lot of factors that go into it. The bottom line is, you can't have stuff like that happen when you're coaching student athletes. That's the bottom line.
Eric Musselman, my guest. Mus, really quickly, if you have time, if you can get it in about a minute or so. The league honored 15 coaches, the NBA. You work for two of them, in Chuck Daly and Doc Rivers. How much have they both influenced you as a head coach?
Oh, man, I tell young coaches all the time, like the greatest thing that ever happened to me was working for Chuck Daly because of the respect that he had. One, I learned so much on a daily basis, but then on the other part was my career. And when the Warriors job opened, he called for me and probably got, me in the door without a question, and then probably slammed the door after the interview. And he later told me, hey, I didn't tell you, you were actually interviewing for the associate head coaching job. I told you it was for the head job because I thought you could kick butt in the interview and I could help you later. And then Doc Rivers, to be with, and I went from one to the other. So Chuck Daly had just retired, and then Doc Rivers, it was his first time as a head coach, and to be a part of both those guys' careers, absolutely incredible. And they both brought so many different aspects and viewpoints to the game at a young age. I couldn't ask for two better mentors.
That's amazing, Mus. I actually did not know that story about Chuck Daly, that he said to you, you're interviewing for the top spot when you really weren't. Because, would that, I know how you go about it. Would that have impacted the way you approached that interview at all? Did that help you?
Yeah. I probably wouldn't have even gone for the interview because I loved being in Orlando. We had a great house obviously the winter in Orlando is awesome, although it's really nice in the Bay Area too. But Coach Daly's agent was Lonnie Cooper, who was also my agent and was also the general manager's agent, Gary St. Jean. And none of them told me what I was going in for. And so my agent, Lonnie Cooper, was in cahoots with Coach Daly just to try to get me in there. And so I prepared only as if I was going in there for the head coaching job.
That is a wild story. He is the head coach at Arkansas, third season there, and once again, they went to the Elite Eight last season. They were playing really good ball when it matters most. But again, coming down the stretch, probably 4 ranked teams in the last 8 games, and Eric Musselman will have them ready. Muss, great to have you on the show. Thanks so much. Good luck the rest of the win. I know you and I will get caught up soon.
Thanks so much, Jim. Always awesome being in the jungle. I love every morning spending an hour listening to you while I work out. Keep up the awesome work. Thanks, Jim.
You're the best, Muss. Really proud of you. Really inspired by you. You're an amazing story.